As the clock struck midnight, ushering in the new year of 2019, the entire NHL landscape was about to change forever. The league's worst team, the St. Louis Blues, were about to defy all odds to win the most coveted prize in all of hockey, the Stanley Cup. But how did this complete mess of a team manage to turn their season around and complete one of the greatest underdog stories in sports history? The answer lies in an unusual place, a bar in South Philly, and a new victory song.
So here we are, 52 years in with no Stanley Cups and not one in the near future either. Who do you blame? You know who I blame? These faces, these players, each and every one of them. Collectively, they get more coaches fired than the Cleveland Browns. They make lots of money on long-term contracts and then don't perform like they should. The Blues have had 6 different coaches win the Cup, a whopping 19 total Stanley Cups. Just none here.
52 years and counting. For more than half a century, the St. Louis Blues had fought tirelessly for a shot at the Stanley Cup, only to end up empty-handed. Our story begins in the offseason of 2018, following a tough 2017-2018 campaign in which the Blues finished with a 44-32-6 record, causing them to narrowly miss out on the Stanley Cup playoffs. Despite that disappointing season, expectations remained high. After all, it was the first time in 6 years the team had failed to make the playoffs, and the fan base was hopeful that this setback wouldn't mark a downward trend. The standard had been set in St. Louis, and the entire front office understood that changes were necessary if they wanted any chance of finally capturing the elusive Stanley Cup. Enter general manager Doug Armstrong. Armstrong had been the Blues general manager since 2010. And after coming up short in 6 straight playoff appearances with the Blues, it was becoming likely that the only trophy he would ever get to hold would be his General Manager of the Year award he had won in 2012. This would not stop Armstrong, though, as he would set off to begin what many would consider an incredible offseason for the St. Louis Blues. The centerpiece of Armstrong's offseason overhaul was the acquisition courtesy of the Buffalo Sabres. On July 1st of 2018, the Blues traded for O'Reilly in a blockbuster deal that took the media by storm. The Blues now had an extremely skilled two-way center known for his defensive prowess, elite face-off ability, and leadership qualities that could quickly take charge of a locker room. The trade was a significant win for the Blues. Bringing in a player of O'Reilly's caliber would certainly stabilize the center position and provide leadership both on and off the ice. O'Reilly had been a standout player in Buffalo, recording 24 goals and 37 assists for 61 points in the previous season. His work ethic and commitment to winning were expected to make an immediate impact on the Blues roster. To further solidify their center depth, the Blues signed Tyler Bozak, a veteran center who had spent his entire NHL career with the Toronto Maple Leafs. On July 1st, 2018, Bozak agreed to a 3-year contract worth $15 million. Bozak was known for his face-off skills, playmaking ability, and versatility, making him a valuable addition as a second or third line center. His experience and leadership were also expected to benefit the Blues' younger players. In addition to the O'Reilly trade and Bozak signing, the Blues brought back winger David Perron. A familiar face to the Blues fans, Perron had previously played for St. Louis and had enjoyed a career-best season with the Vegas Golden Knights, posting 66 points in 70 games. On July 1st of 2018, Perron signed a 4-year contract worth $16 million. His chemistry with former teammates and his ability to play in the top 6 as a scoring winger made Perron a valuable addition to the Blues offense. Perron's return was also seen as a move to bring stability and veteran leadership, especially given his familiarity with the team's culture and expectations. The Blues also added size and toughness by signing Patrick Maroon, a St. Louis native. Maroon was known for his physical presence, net front play, and ability to chip in offensively. On July 10th of 2018, Maroon agreed to a 1-year contract with the Blues, worth $1.75 million. The signing of Maroon not only added depth to the Blues forward group, but also brought a sense of pride and passion, as Maroon fulfilled a lifelong dream playing for his hometown team. His leadership and grit were expected to provide a spark both on the ice and in the locker room. With these aggressive offseason moves, the Blues significantly bolstered their roster. Adding a mix of skill, defensive responsibility, and physicality, Ryan O'Reilly, Tyler Bozak, David Perron, and Patrick Maroon were brought in to complement the existing core of Tarasenko, Pietrangelo, and Schwartz. The Blues now had 4 strong lines, each capable of contributing offensively and playing a defensively responsible game, something they had struggled with last season. The message from Doug Armstrong was clear. The Blues were no longer content with just making the playoffs. They were determined to build a team that can contend for the Stanley Cup. These moves were seen as bold, but they came with the expectation that the Blues would immediately become one of the top teams in the league. The St. Louis Blues entered the 2018-2019 NHL season with lofty expectations, largely due to the offseason moves that had reshaped their roster. With the acquisitions, the team was widely viewed as a legitimate contender. Analysts and fans believed that the Blues had the depth, skill, and veteran leadership needed to not only make the playoffs, but potentially make a deep run in the postseason. However, the reality on the ice quickly contradicted those high hopes. From the beginning, the Blues struggled to find chemistry on their line due to the influx of new players. This lack of stability translated into inconsistent play. Some nights the Blues looked like the powerhouse team they were expected to be, with strong offensive performances and solid defensive efforts. On other nights, they seemed disorganized, sluggish, and unfocused, unable to generate sustained offensive pressure or defend effectively. By mid-November, the Blues had fallen to a 7-9-3 record, placing them near the bottom of the Central Division standings. Their performance was characterized by defensive troubles, goaltending issues, and a lack of offensive production from key players. Vladimir Tarasenko, expected to be one of the team's top goal scorers, just ended up struggling to find the back of the net consistently. The goaltending duo of Jake Allen and Chad Johnson failed to provide the stability the Blues needed from them, often allowing easy goals that deflated the team's morale. Enter Mike Yeo. Mike Yeo had been named head coach of the Blues in 2017. After previously serving as head coach of the Minnesota Wild, Yeo was facing intense scrutiny over the results so far in the season and the results of the season prior. How was a team that had been so well praised played so poorly? Yeo had been hired to replace Ken Hitchcock, promising St. Louis a more up-tempo style of play. This style of play never came to fruition, though, as the Blues would continue to play sloppy and mistake-ridden hockey. Fans and media began questioning Yeo's tactics and decision-making, specifically his line combinations and handling of the goalies. Reports of locker room discontent and lack of clear direction surfaced, adding to the growing pressure on Yeo's position. Yeo's coaching style, often perceived as methodical and systematic, was not resonating with the players. There were signs that the team was not fully buying into his system, resulting in inconsistent performances. The Blues were frequently outworked by their opponents, and their inability to maintain leads or come from behind was a glaring problem. The team's morale appeared low, and confidence was slowly dwindling. The breaking point came after a 2-0 loss to the Los Angeles Kings, who were also struggling at the time of this game. The defeat from the Kings was disheartening, as it marked the 3rd time in 4 games that the Blues were shut out. The lack of motivation in the Blues play was evident as the team just seemed lost on the ice. The Blues' record dropped to 7-9-3, and they found themselves near the bottom of the NHL standings, a position far from where everyone predicted them to be in the offseason. This loss to the Kings would prove to be the final straw for Doug Armstrong and the Blues management. On November 20th, 2018, Mike Yeo was relieved of his duties as head coach. The decision to fire Yeo was a clear signal from the organization that they were not willing to wait any longer for the team to turn things around. It was time for a change. Enter Craig Berube. The Blues associate coach, Craig Berube, was promoted to interim head coach. Berube, a former NHL player known for his toughness and straightforward approach, brought a different coaching style. He was known for his no-nonsense attitude and ability to connect with players on a personal level. Berube's task was daunting, to turn around a team that was underperforming and struggling with internal conflicts. Despite the coaching change, the Blues' problems didn't disappear overnight. Berube faced the immediate challenge of stabilizing a team that was low on confidence and struggling to find an identity. In his first games as interim head coach, the Blues' performance continued to fluctuate. They showed flashes of improvement, but consistency remained elusive. By mid-December, the Blues' record had not significantly improved, and they remained near the bottom of the league standings. Berube began implementing changes to the team's approach, emphasizing a simpler, more straightforward style of play. He encouraged the players to focus on defensive responsibility and hard work, aiming to build a strong foundation from the back end forward. Despite the efforts, the team's morale remained fragile, and victories were pretty hard to come by. During this period, reports of tension within the locker room surfaced. The pressure of losing and unmet expectations began to boil over. One notable incident that highlighted the internal problems was a post-practice altercation between defenseman Robert Bortuzzo and forward Zach Sanford. This physical confrontation, while not uncommon in hockey, was a symptom of the frustrations boiling over within the team. It indicated a lack of cohesion and unity as players were clearly feeling the weight of their disappointing season. Rumors circulated some players were unhappy with their roles and the team's direction. Adding to the sense of uncertainty, leadership questions arose, with some wondering if Alex Pietrangelo, the captain, could rally the team effectively. Although veterans like Ryan O'Reilly and Alexander Steen tried to maintain a positive influence, the team's poor performance created an atmosphere of doubt. By December, the Blues had hit rock bottom. On December 3rd of 2018, following a 6-1 loss to the Arizona Coyotes, the Blues found themselves with the worst record in the NHL. This was a stark contrast to the high expectations set in the offseason. At this point, the team's record stood at 9-13-3. Trade rumors swirled around players like Vladimir Tarasenko and Alex Pietrangelo. Craig Berube continued to emphasize hard work, accountability, and defensive play. Slowly, he began to win over the locker room. Players started responding to Berube's direct approach, and the foundation for what would become a remarkable turnaround was laid during these tough times. The team's resilience and willingness to fight through adversity began to take shape, even if the results weren't immediately visible. Berube's coaching style contrasted sharply with Yo's. While Yo had been more methodical and systematic, Berube simplified the game plan, urging players to play instinctively and physically. He encouraged a style of hockey that fit the Blues' personnel better, one that relied on strong forechecking, tight defense, and opportunistic scoring. As December rolled on, the St. Louis Blues found themselves at a crossroads. Sitting dead last in the NHL standings, it was rock bottom for the Blues, and the team desperately needed a spark to ignite a turnaround. Craig Berube's coaching was beginning to resonate with the team, but the players needed some more to rally around if they wanted to make a light of an awful season. Unbeknownst to anyone, the Blues would find that spark while on a road trip in Philadelphia as a few players visited a bar that was coming fresh off a win, called the Jack's New Year's Brigade. Every New Year's Day, Philadelphia erupts as the vibrant and iconic Mummers Parade commences, a citywide celebration where local clubs like the legendary Jack's New Year's Brigade dance their way down Broad Street in a colorful competition for year-long bragging rights. In 2019, the Jacks claimed victory with a song that, unbeknownst to the world, would soon become an anthem heard across the NHL. On January 6th of 2019, while on their road trip in Philadelphia, players Alexander Steen, Joel Edmondson, Robert Bertuzzo, Jaden Schwartz, and Robbie Fabry decided to take a trip to Jack's NYB, a Mummers bar in South Philly, where they decided to watch the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Chicago Bears in the NFC wildcard game. During the commercial breaks, though, a singular song took over the bar as cheers would erupt, and everyone would cheerfully sing along. Enter Jordan Binnington. The day after the fateful night at Jack's NYB, January 7th, 2019, the Blues decided to start an unproven goaltender named Jordan Binnington. At the time, Binnington had little experience at the NHL level, but with the Blues season slipping away, the coaching staff was willing to take a risk. In his first start, Binnington made 25 saves and posted a shutout in a 3-0 victory against the Philadelphia Flyers. It was a monumental win for the deflated Blues roster, but something was different about this win. The Blues had brought something home with them from Jack's NYB, a new victory song, Laura Branigan's Gloria. This performance and new victory song was just a glimpse of what was to come. Binnington would go on to become the cornerstone of the Blues' stunning turnaround. His calm demeanor and stellar play between the pipes injected the team with much-needed confidence. With Binnington as their backbone, the Blues went from a team that couldn't get out of its own way to one that was suddenly playing structured, hard-nosed hockey. As January rolled into February, the Blues caught fire. Behind Binnington's exceptional goaltending, a stout defense led by Alex Pietrangelo, and the relentless two-way play of Ryan O'Reilly, they rattled off an 11-game win streak, the longest in franchise history. Suddenly, the team that had been ridden off was clawing its way back into playoff contention. Ryan O'Reilly, who had been a major offseason acquisition, emerged as the team's heartbeat. His tireless work ethic and leadership became infectious, and his play on both ends of the ice set the standard for the rest of the team. Alongside key contributions from veterans like Vladimir Tarasenko and rookie sensation Robert Thomas, the Blues transformed into one of the league's most formidable teams. As February turned into March, the Blues had fully established themselves as a playoff contender. Their physical, grinding style of hockey made them a nightmare for opponents to play. Defensemen like Colton Parayko and Jay Baumeister were shutting down top opposing forwards, with the combination of O'Reilly, Tarasenko, and David Perron carried the offensive load. The Blues were no longer the league's doormat. They finished the regular season with a 45-28-9 record, climbing all the way to third place in the Central Division, just months after being dead last in the NHL. They not only had secured a playoff spot, but were one of the hottest teams heading into the postseason. It was a miracle that a team sitting at dead last heading into the new year had climbed so far in the rankings. There wasn't time to celebrate though. The Blues had a ticket to the dance. The regular season had come to a close, and the Blues were battle-tested, having endured one of the most remarkable in-season turnarounds in NHL history. With Craig Berube at the helm, Jordan Binnington solidifying himself as the team's undisputed starter, and Gloria as their new victory song, the team entered the playoffs with a new identity. They were no longer the underachievers from the start of the season. They were contenders, brimming with confidence and playing like they had nothing to lose. The Blues had been counted out, but with their newfound swagger and belief, they were about to embark on an unforgettable postseason run that would etch their names into hockey history forever. Heading into the first round of the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, the St. Louis Blues were riding high off their miraculous midseason turnaround, but they faced a daunting challenge: the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets were a powerhouse team in the Western Conference, known for their high-octane offense, led by stars like Mike Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and sniper Patrick Lane. It was a tough matchup on paper. The Blues were considered underdogs once again. The series opened up in Winnipeg, where the Blues needed to steal a game to set the tone. In a hostile environment, it was Jordan Binnington who shined the brightest. The rookie goaltender, who had carried the Blues into the playoffs with his outstanding play, was a brick wall once again. Binnington made 24 saves, and despite facing constant pressure from the Jets' elite forwards, he never wavered. The Blues, led by their relentless two-way play, carved out a 2-1 victory, with goals from David Perron and Tyler Bozak. It was a statement win, and proof that the Blues were a force to be reckoned with. Binnington's poise under pressure was becoming the stuff of legends. In Game 2, the Jets came out with a vengeance. They applied heavy pressure early, but once again, Binnington stood tall. The Blues remained resilient, sticking to Craig Berube's game plan of grinding out chances and wearing down the opposition. Scoring ensued, with both sides releasing a non-stop flurry of offense on one another. The game went into the third period knotted at 3. But it was O'Reilly who broke through once again, scoring the game winner. His leadership and clutch performance were invaluable, and the Blues stunned the Jets by taking both games on the road, grabbing a commanding 2-0 series lead. Suddenly, the Blues had the upper hand, and Binnington's confidence was soaring. Returning to St. Louis for games 3 and 4, the Blues had the chance to put a stranglehold on the series, but the Jets weren't going down without a fight. In Game 3, the Jets' high-powered offense finally broke through. Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor led a relentless attack, and despite a strong effort from the Blues, Winnipeg took a 6-3 win to get back into the series. Game 4 was a critical turning point. The Blues played the best hockey of the series, dominating possession and generating numerous scoring chances. But Jets goaltender Connor Hellebuck was sensational. Keeping his team in the game, in overtime, Kyle Connor scored the game winner, silencing the St. Louis crowd and tying the series 2-2. Just like that, the momentum had shifted back into Winnipeg's favor, and the Blues faced a daunting task heading back to Winnipeg for Game 5. With the series tied and pressure mounting, the Blues entered Game 5 knowing they needed to reclaim their early series form. The game was tight, with both teams playing a physical defensive style. Once again, Jordan Binnington was spectacular. Holding the Jets at bay as the game wore on, it seemed destined for another overtime battle, until Jaden Schwartz stepped up in the dying seconds of regulation. With just 15 seconds left on the clock, Schwartz found the back of the net on a perfectly placed shot, delivering a heart-stopping 3-2 victory for the Blues. It was a crushing blow to the Jets and a massive emotional boost for St. Louis. Schwartz's goal became an iconic moment in the Blues' postseason run, and the team returned home with a 3-2 series lead, just one win away from advancing. Back at the Enterprise Center in St. Louis, the Blues had a chance to eliminate the Jets and move on to the next round. The atmosphere was electric, and the fans were ready to see their team take the next step in their improbable journey. The Blues came out firing, and Jaden Schwartz once again played the hero. He scored a hat trick, becoming the driving force behind a 3-2 victory that sent the Jets packing. Jordan Binnington was as steady as ever, making key saves at critical moments, and the Blues had finally defeated the favored Jets in 6 games, a massive achievement for a team that had been in last place just months earlier. Their physical, determined style of play had worn down Winnipeg, and their relentless forecheck had neutralized the Jets' offensive firepower. As Gloria blasted through the locker room, the Blues knew they were on to something special. The first-round victory had only further strengthened their belief that their playoff run was possible, but the road to the Stanley Cup was far from over. The next challenge awaited in the Western Conference semifinals. The momentum was on their side, and the Blues were ready to continue their magical run. With their confidence sky high, after a tremendous first-round victory over the Winnipeg Jets, the St. Louis Blues advanced to the Western Conference semifinals to face another formidable opponent, the Dallas Stars.
Round 2 begins tonight in St. Louis as the Blues meet the Dallas Stars in game number 1 of a best-of-7 series. It's a playoff matchup nobody would have believed back in December, but now both teams 8 wins away from a trip to the Stanley Cup final.
The Stars were a defensively stout team, led by forwards Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and goaltender Ben Bishop. This series promised to be a hard-fought battle, defined by tight checking, stellar goaltending, and a relentless physicality on both sides. The Blues opened the series at home. In front of an electric crowd, Game 1 was a tight physical contest, with both teams trading blows early. The Stars' defense, anchored by Bishop, proved to be difficult to penetrate, but the Blues stayed patient and stuck to their game plan. Vladimir Tarasenko, who had been relatively quiet in the first round, stepped up in a big way, scoring 2 key goals to propel the Blues to a 3-2 win. Jordan Binnington, continuing his stellar playoff run, made 27 saves, stifling the Stars' offensive threats and frustrating their top forwards. The Blues had drawn first blood in the series, and looked poised to carry the momentum from their first-round triumph into the semifinals. Game 2 saw a determined Dallas team, looking to even the series. The Stars came out flying, with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin leading the charge. St. Louis struggled to match the intensity of Dallas early on, and despite some strong individual efforts from Ryan O'Reilly and Jaden Schwartz, the Blues couldn't capitalize on their chances. Ben Bishop was outstanding in the net, making key saves to preserve the lead for Dallas. The Stars took Game 2 by a score of 4-2, tying the series at 1-1 as the teams headed to Dallas for the next 2 games. The Blues knew they needed to elevate their play if they were going to reclaim control of the series. In Game 3, the series shifted to the American Airlines Center in Dallas, where the Stars had the advantage of their home crowd. However, Jordan Binnington was unfazed by the pressure. The rookie goalie delivered one of the most impressive performances of the playoffs, stopping 28 of 29 shots and keeping the Blues in the game when the Stars pressed hard in the second period. Jaden Schwartz, who had been the Blues' unsung hero throughout the playoffs, once again rose to the occasion, scoring a clutch third-period goal to give the Blues victory. It was another character win for St. Louis, and they regained the series lead, up 2-1. Game 4 was a pivotal contest, with both teams battling for control of the series. The game turned into a thrilling back-and-forth affair. With neither team able to establish a firm grip on the momentum, Stars forward Roope Hintz was a force for Dallas, scoring twice and driving the offense, while St. Louis responded with goals from Colton Parayko and Robert Thomas, whose speed and playmaking were starting to become a key factor in the series. That night, the Blues were no match for the relentless force of the Stars. The Blues would go on to lose the game 4-2, thus tying the series at 2 before their trip back home. Back at the Enterprise Center for Game 5, the pressure was at an all-time high. Both teams knew the importance of taking a 3-2 series lead. The game lived up to its billing, as it turned into an intense defensive struggle, with both teams trading quality scoring chances. Eventually, though, the Blues would succumb to the attacks of the Stars and lose Game 5 by a score of 2-1, giving Dallas the upper hand with a 3-2 series lead. Back in Dallas for Game 6, the Blues, facing elimination, responded with one of their best performances of the series. The Blues' defense was sensational, putting on an absolute clinic. The game stayed relatively even, with the Blues and the Stars both creating numerous scoring opportunities. But the difference maker was Binnington, who resembled a brick wall in the net. The Blues closed out the game with a demanding 4-1 victory against Dallas on their home ice. Now, with everything on the line, Game 7 would decide who moved on to the Western Conference Final.
This series is tied 3 games apiece. Blues and Stars have battled every other day for the last 12 days. 6 games, 16 goals apiece. It is now a best of 1.
With the series deadlocked at 3-3, Game 7 between the St. Louis Blues and Dallas Stars was set to be a nail-biter, and it didn't disappoint. The tension inside the Enterprise Center was palpable as Blues fans packed the arena, hoping their team could take one step closer to the Stanley Cup. Both teams came out cautious, knowing that one mistake could cost them everything. The Blues looked to set a statement early, and they did so with a wrist shot courtesy of Vince Dunn that gave them the go-ahead lead of 1-0. The Stars tested Jordan Binnington early, and midway through the first period, they capitalized. Tyler Seguin found Matt Zuccarello with a pass that cut through the Blues defense, and Zuccarello beat Binnington to tie things up. The crowd fell silent and the Blues knew they had to respond. The third period was a tight battle. Each team knew that one goal could send them to the Western Conference Final, and neither was willing to give an inch. The Stars had the best chance when Jamie Benn found himself alone on a breakaway, but Binnington made a clutch save, stretching his pad to deny the Stars' captain. The Blues had their own opportunities, but Bishop continued to be a wall. Time ticked down and regulation ended with the score still tied at 1-1. Overtime was on the horizon. Heading into overtime, exhaustion began to show, but both teams continued to press. The Blues created more chances but couldn't get past Bishop, who made highlight reel saves to keep the Stars alive. The tension in the building was unbearable. As the minutes ticked away, the first period came to a close and it was now time for both teams to enter second overtime. 5 minutes into second overtime, the defining moment came. Robert Thomas made a move around a Dallas defender and fired a shot that hit the post, sending the puck bouncing wildly in front of the net. Pat Maroon, the hometown hero, who had been one of the biggest free agent signings of the Blues offseason, had now found himself in the right place at the right time. Using his size and strength, Maroon pushed past the Stars defenders and poked the rebound into the net, sending the Enterprise Center into pandemonium. The Blues had done it. They had won Game 7 in double overtime, advancing to the Western Conference Final. As the players celebrated on the ice, Laura Branigan's Gloria blasted through the arena, solidifying the moment as part of Blues history forever. It was a night St. Louis would never forget, a night that proved the Blues were a team of destiny. After an emotional Game 7 win against the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues advanced to face the San Jose Sharks in the Western Conference Final. The Sharks, led by veterans Joe Thornton, Logan Couture, and Brent Burns, were battle-tested, having survived a grueling 7-game series against the Colorado Avalanche. The Blues knew this was going to be another tough fight, but with momentum on their side, they were ready to rise to the occasion. The series opened up in San Jose, and the Sharks fed off their home crowd's energy. The Blues managed to keep it close, with Ryan O'Reilly and Tyler Bozak each finding the back of the net, but the Sharks' high-powered offense was too much. San Jose took Game 1 with a 6-3 victory, putting the Blues on their heels right out of the gate. Facing a potential 0-2 hole, the Blues knew they had to respond in Game 2. This time, they came out with more intensity and physical play. Disrupting the Sharks' rhythm, Jordan Binnington was back to his sharp self, making 24 saves and keeping the Sharks' potent offense in check. Jaden Schwartz continued his playoff heroics with a clutch goal, and Vince Dunn added with another blistering shot from the point. Blues evened the series with a 4-2 win, stealing home ice advantage as the series shifted back to St. Louis. Back in St. Louis for Game 3, the Enterprise Center was electric, and the Blues fed off the energy, grabbing a 4-3 lead heading into the final minutes. But then, controversy struck. With just over a minute left in regulation, a play in front of the Blues net led to the puck being directed into the goal off of the Sharks winger, Timo Meier's hand. While the Blues expected a hand pass call to nullify the goal, the referees didn't review it, allowing the Sharks to score a game winner in overtime. The Blues and their fans were outraged, and the missed call was a major talking point, leaving St. Louis down 2-1 in the series. Reeling from the controversial loss, the Blues channeled their frustration into a dominant performance in Game 4. They came out firing on all cylinders, and the Sharks had no answer for the Blues' relentless forecheck and physicality. Jordan Binnington stood tall, making 29 saves. Ivan Barbashev collected his first goal of the playoffs, and Tyler Bozak also scored off an incredible tip-in to win the game 2-1. Thus settling the series at 2-2 and restoring the Blues' confidence, the series returned to San Jose. Game 5 in San Jose was a turning point for the Blues. Vladimir Tarasenko broke out of his scoring slump with a crucial goal, and Oskar Sundqvist added insurance. Jordan Binnington proved why he was the Blues' savior. He made 33 saves in a goaltending clinic, turning away wave after wave of Sharks attacks. The Blues weathered the storm and pounced on their opportunities. The 5-0 blowout gave the Blues a 3-2 lead in the series, and boosted the Blues' confidence as the series returned to St. Louis. Back in St. Louis for Game 6, the Blues were determined to finish the series on home ice and give their fans a night to remember. From the opening puck drop, the Blues set the tone, delivering hit after hit and frustrating the Sharks' top players. San Jose, already dealing with injuries to key players like Erik Karlsson and Joe Pavelski, struggled to keep up. David Perron opened the scoring for the Blues, and Brayden Schenn added a power play goal to give St. Louis a 2-0 lead. The Sharks tried to mount a comeback, but Binnington was once again a brick wall. The Blues controlled the pace of the game, and when Ivan Barbashev scored a goal in the final minutes to make the score 5-1, the celebration was already on. As the clock wound down, the fans erupted. With a 5-1 win in Game 6, the St. Louis Blues were headed to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in nearly 5 decades. The impossible was not so far away as Gloria echoed through the Enterprise Center once again, as the team prepared for their ultimate challenge, a showdown with the Boston Bruins for the Stanley Cup.
With the Blues right now.
We're not good enough. There's things that need to be addressed.
How would you try and fix the Blues? What's going on with this team right now?
Is I don't know who they are, and more importantly, I don't feel they have established who they are as a team.
Oh, when the Blues go marching in. Oh, when the Blues go marching in. Oh, I want to be in that number when the Blues go marching in. Oh, when the Blues go marching in. Oh, when the Blues go marching in. Oh, I want to be in that number when the Blues go marching in. Oh, when the Blues go marching in. Oh, when the Blues go marching
in. The St. Louis Blues had advanced to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 1970. Their opponent was the Boston Bruins, the same team that had swept the Blues in the 1970 final. This time, the Blues were determined to write a different story. Bruins, led by captain Zdeno Chara, star forwards Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Pastrnak, and the standout goaltender, Tura Rask. Bruins entered the series as the favorites, but the Blues, now known for their resilience, were not backing down. The stage was set for an epic showdown. Game 1 was held at the world-famous TD Garden in Boston, and the Bruins took advantage of their home ice. After falling behind 2-0 on goals by Brayden Schenn and Vladimir Tarasenko, the Bruins came out roaring. Sean Curley scored the go-ahead goal in the third period as Boston's depth players took over. Despite the Blues' fast start, the Bruins wore them down with relentless pressure, winning 4-2 and taking a 1-0 series lead. Game 2 was pivotal for the Blues, as they looked to avoid falling into a 2-0 hole. In front of a hostile Boston crowd, St. Louis delivered a gutsy performance. Vladimir Tarasenko scored his second goal of the series, tying the game and setting the stage for a critical overtime battle between the two squads. Despite Boston's efforts to score the game winner, Jordan Binnington stood tall. In overtime, Carl Gunnarsson, who had hit the post late in regulation, redeemed himself by blasting a shot from the point that beat Rask, giving the Blues a thrilling 3-2 victory. It was their first Stanley Cup final win in franchise history, and the series was tied 1-1 heading back to St. Louis. With the series shifting back to St. Louis, Blues fans were buzzing, but the Bruins quickly silenced the home crowd in Game 3. Boston put on a clinic, scoring 3 goals in the first period, including one from their top line of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak. The Blues looked out of sync, and Binnington was pulled after allowing 5 goals. The Bruins cruised to a 7-2 win, reclaiming the series lead and putting the Blues in a tough spot mentally. Facing a crucial Game 4, the Blues knew they had to find a spark. And they found it. Ryan O'Reilly, who had been relatively quiet in the series, played like a man possessed. He opened the scoring with a goal just 43 seconds into the game. And after the Bruins tied the game at 2 later on, O'Reilly struck again in the third period, jamming in a rebound to give the Blues a 3-2 lead. The Blues were relentless, and an empty net goal by Brayden Schenn sealed a 4-2 victory, tying the series at 2 and setting up a best-of-3 showdown for the Stanley Cup. Game 5 in Boston was one of the most tightly contested battles of the series. Both teams traded scoring chances. Tuukka Rask and Jordan Binnington were both outstanding in the net. Thus, defense prevailed that night. With the game scoreless in the second period, it was once again Ryan O'Reilly who played the hero. He sliced a backhand shot past Rask, giving the Blues a 1-0 lead. David Perron would go on to add an insurance goal after a controversial no call on a possible Bruins penalty. Despite a late goal by Boston, the Blues held on for a 2-1 win, taking a 3-2 series lead and heading back to St. Louis with a chance to win the Stanley Cup on home ice. With the Stanley Cup in the building, Blues fans packed the Enterprise Center in anticipation of their team lifting the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. But the Bruins had other plans. Behind a dominant performance from Tuukka Rask, who made 28 saves, the Bruins shut down the Blues offense. Boston's Brad Marchand opened the scoring on a power play, and Zdeno Chara, playing through a broken jaw, contributed with a gritty effort. The Bruins won 5-1, and the Blues were stunned. Everyone knew this would be it. One final game to determine the Stanley Cup champions. Game 7, back in Boston. June 12, 2019, TD Garden in Boston was packed, buzzing with tension and anticipation. For the St. Louis Blues, this was the moment, an opportunity to capture their first ever Stanley Cup after 52 years of waiting. For the Boston Bruins, it was a chance to claim their second championship in a decade. The stakes couldn't be higher for each team, as you could almost feel the pressure inside the Garden. Boston came out with everything they had, launching a barrage of shots at rookie goaltender Jordan Binnington. The Bruins, backed by a roaring home crowd, were desperate to strike first, but Binnington was dialed in. Save after save, he turned away Boston's relentless attack. Each stop only heightened the tension, especially for the Blues faithful, who were holding their breath back home. The Blues, biding their time, seized the opportunity late in the first period. With just over 3 minutes left, Ryan O'Reilly, who had been the heart of the team all postseason, deflected a shot from Jay Baumeister that slipped past Bruins goalie Tuukka Rask, and TD Garden went silent. The Blues were up 1-0, and suddenly, belief surged for the team and its fans. Boston continued to pressure in the first period. Binnington remained unbeatable. Then, with just seconds left in the period, Blues captain Alex Pietrangelo made a brilliant play. Weaving through the Bruins defense with a perfectly timed move, he lifted the puck on his backhand over Rask's shoulder to make it 2-0. It was a back-breaking goal, stunning the Bruins and giving the Blues a crucial lead heading into the final 40 minutes of their season. The third period was like a ticking time bomb. Boston threw everything at St. Louis, desperate to break Binnington's wall of saves. With every minute that passed, the tension built to unbearable levels. But then, with just over 8 minutes remaining, Brayden Schenn added what felt like the dagger. He ripped a one-timer past Rask, extending the lead to 3-0. Blues were on the brink of their long-awaited Stanley Cup glory. Minutes later, Zachary Sanford would step up with his first goal of the postseason, nailing a shot past Rask to make it 4-0 in the late stages of the game. But the Bruins weren't done. With just over 2 minutes left, Boston managed to break Binnington's shutout. Matt Grzelcyk fired a shot from the point that found its way past Binnington, making it 4-1. The arena roared to life as the Bruins saw a glimmer of hope. The Bruins finally found a way around Binnington. For a brief moment, the momentum swung. Boston pressed and every second felt like an eternity, but the Blues held firm. The clock began to wound down, and actually, I think it'd be better if you witnessed it for yourselves.
A team that was in last place on January 3rd. The players on the bench are bouncing up. History will be made tonight in Boston. 15 seconds to go as Schenn blocks a puck to the corner. 10 seconds remaining. Get up, St. Louis. Get on your feet. Raise them high. 5 seconds to go, and the time winds down. They did it. It's over. The game is over. The series is over. The wait is over. And the St. Louis Blues are the Stanley Cup champions for the first time in franchise history.
Captain Alex Pietrangelo hoisted the Stanley Cup, the culmination of 52 years of perseverance, heartbreak, and resilience was made worthwhile. The team celebrated on the ice as Gloria blared for the arena. Blues' journey from last place in the league to champions was now complete. A team that had been sitting in last place in January had now just completed one of the greatest underdog stories in the history of sports. The St. Louis Blues were Stanley Cup champions, and their triumph would be etched in NHL history forever.
Here, that's how you want it. It's not just the guys that laced him up and stuff, like it's every single person in the city that just kept stepping with us. Beginning of the year, when we were in last place, people still bought tickets, still came to watch us. And it's people like that that we win this with.
I'm a hometown hero, baby! Put your glasses up right now, St. Louis! Look around right now! We're Stanley Cup champs, baby! Woo!